Okay. Great. Well, we recorded it last time. Just didn't have sound, but that's okay. So first, this class is sponsored by Yerachma Azriel ben Edel Shena for Shlema. And it should already be that this should be the Sudas Hadah, that should already be completely cured and ready to be celebrating the Thanksgiving meal to thank Hashem. So this topic for this class began around 10 years ago. And so I like to bring stories, and really the point is to really bring this down and to make it very practical for people. Like everyone takes home different take-home lessons, but at least there should be 1, 2, 3 take-home lessons that people get. And this is like the third iteration of this class. I gave in Kabbalah of North Hollywood, I gave at a home in Pico on Tuesday night. And so now this is, every time it gets more developed and more thought out, hopefully. So hopefully this will be a nice practical class and inspiring class that everyone can really have some take-home lessons from. So about 10 years ago, I was getting ready to make Aliyah with my family at the time to Israel to work full-time with Rabbi Ginsburg. And I saw this class that Rabbi Ginsburg gave on mindsets, on Carol Dweck. Carol Dweck has this book. It's now sold 2 million copies. It's called Mindsets, the theory of fixed and growth mindsets. So Rabbi Ginsburg gave a book explaining a little bit of the Kabbalah and Hasidus behind this book, Mindsets. And it was, a class that I felt like really needed to get out there, really people needed to know about. And so as part of like what I wanted to as one of my first activities to do when I was in Israel, I wanted to put this transcript into a booklet. What I didn't know was how much effort and motivation it would take to write a book about motivation. That first of all, I moved to Israel, and every step of the way, I was like asking Rabbi Ginsburg, is this enough? Like it started off as a booklet, and he kept on encouraging me to do more and more until we had a full system. It's called a Partsuf, a whole system of explaining all these thoughts behind what it means to be motivated and have a growth mindset. And ultimately, about 10 pages wound up being 250 pages. So yeah, you go into things and you see like it has steps along the way. So at every time that you reach the next step, it's like, oh, I want to give up. It's too hard. And it's like, no, keep on going to the next step and the next step. So that was really what it was like. And so that was, I knew last month I went to give a class on motivation. And it's funny, we're going to talk about how fun it is to really open our eyes and see God and everything. But the story actually, the approach to this class started about 5-6 weeks ago. And Eli Melech actually knows the start of the story, is that we were in Beis Tefillah, and a person comes and he thought that there was still a minyan, right? But sometimes they have an extra minyan, and sometimes they don't. If the yeshiva is back in session or not. And so as a way to encourage him, we said, don't worry. Every step you take to a house of prayer, you get merit for each step. And this is actually from Rabbi Yochanan in the Talmud. Actually, 2 times the Rabbi Yochanan brings this. But every step that you take, you get merit for each step. Okay, so that was it. Actually, I learned after the guy left with Eli Melech for a little bit, because it was related to something that he was learning at that time. So we sat and I was standing, but we learned for a few minutes. Okay. 4 or 5 weeks later, so I'm going to the East Coast. I'm here half the time. My kids from my first marriage are in Vermont, so I'm there about half the time, and I'm here about half the time. So I was on the East Coast, for about 4 or 5 weeks. We come back, and we're about a block away from Chabad. And this is Shabbos Bereshis. And we're about a block away, and these two Jews come up and they Shabbat Shalom. And one says to me, "You don't know me, right? Mount Sinai was a couple thousand years ago, right? It's like, okay, it's been a long time. I don't think I know you." And he said, "Tell me," he's trying to prove like a bet to his friends, "Isn't it true that every step you take to a house of prayer, you get merit for it?" And this is literally that was the last conversation that I had before flying to the East Coast, was that conversation. And the first random conversation, right, that we had soon after I came back was the same conversation. So I'm like, okay, this is the approach that I need to take for this class. And when I started these classes, it was on the Torah portion of Lech Lecha, which is, if you can think of a growth mindset individual in the Torah, that's Abraham, right? Always progressing. So first of all, what is a fixed mindset and what is a growth mindset? According to Dweck. So the way to sum it up is that when a person's confronted by a challenge, some obstacle, whether to view this as something that's threatening or an opportunity, right? So the example she brings is of a child who's given one assignment after the next, and then finally he's presented with something challenging. He's like, finally, right? Something challenging, right? So that's a good example of a growth mindset individual who's like excited by challenges. It really motivated by challenges, right? And then it also applies to maybe a person maybe can't be Beethoven or Mozart or Einstein, but a person can grow, and a person can do amazing things if they just set themselves to it. So that's a growth individual. And a fixed individual is, however, whatever my IQ is how I was born, and viewing any challenge, any opportunity for growth as a threat and something to avoid. Okay, so that's basically, to sum up, the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And we know we have the teaching Degati Matzasi Tamin, right? If you toil and you're successful, you believe, right? You believe the person. So this is a very, very much ingrained in the Jewish consciousness of praising effort. And that's also the difference between not praising the result necessarily, but praising the effort. That's the other difference between in Carol Dweck's approach, is to praise the effort, right? You don't necessarily, like we say that you can't, the results are up to Hashem, up to God. You can't control the results, but what we can do is to expend the effort. Okay, so this is the beginning of a little bit of a framework of understanding, first of all, what a growth mindset is, and secondly, that where do you see this? Where do you see the merit of taking steps forward is in prayer. So all that we're going to be discussing is within most of what we're going to be discussing is in the context of prayer. And why is that important? So you see with Abraham, first he had his faith, right? First he saw the wonder of creation. He knew that there was a God behind all of this. First he awakened his faith in God, and then he was able to be motivated throughout all his trials in life. So what prayer does is we're going to see, is it brings down all these things that are potential, all our dreams and aspirations, all those things that we want to do in our lives, and it makes it something that we're praying to God, please make it a reality, right? Please answer my prayers. Please today that I should bring a little bit of this future potential into the present. So every step that we take, what is a good thing to have in mind? So on the one hand, right, it's true that every step you take, you get merit for it. But in Tishrei, you had some people that traveled thousands of miles of steps, right? You had to Uman, to 770, right? And the idea is that every step we take is a step closer to God, right? We travel towards Israel. It's called making aliyah, to travel up. It's a step ascending. And we're going to talk a little bit about the 42 journeys, about the journeys that we all take each and every day. But this idea is that every step is a step closer to God and a step closer to fulfilling our purpose in life. So it's, on the one hand, right, according to Rabbi Yochanan, you get merit for it, right, which is true. But on the other hand, why do we do it is because we're coming closer to God. Okay. So, like nowadays, you have step counters, right? You track your steps, 10,000 steps. So every moment is, every day, we're taking all these steps. We're taking it towards fulfilling our purpose. Now, the first thing that we're going to introduce that's a little, in order to, how do we stay motivated, right? So to get motivated means to have a sense of wonder and to believe in ourselves, to take initiative, right? All of these things, to open up that sense of wonder and to believe in ourselves. That's to get motivated. To stay motivated, a very helpful tool is, according to what the Baal Shem Tov teaches, is continual recreation. The God is continually recreating reality at every moment. So every moment has like unlimited potentials, right? So there's a story of Rabbi Yisrael of Luzhin, when he was a small boy, that his father took him through the forest and to see the sunset, to the edge to see the sunset. And he said, "Look, Abba, you can see where the sky ends." So his father said, "Beyond that sky is another sky, and beyond that is another." And God created them all. And this is a very good thing. Like every day, every moment is filled with these unbounded potentials. That every moment is like a new horizon, a new awakening, a new potential, a new beginning. Right? And that's another good thing to keep in mind. So there's these two aspects. There's the chinuch, there's the initiation, taking initiative of education. And then there's hadracha, that every day as we go about our activities, to stay motivated. And again, to always view every moment, every day, every moment as with a limited potential. So I was giving this over, and someone said that the idea that prayer is the biggest motivator. So it took him 2 years, but he saw this in his own life, that nothing motivated him, nothing at all. But the minute he started opening up the dialogue, right, the communication with Hashem, he started to be motivated about life again, to want to progress forward. And it starts off with first a belief in ourselves, and secondly, with the belief that in the power of our prayer, that by praying that our potentials can come down and we can actualize our purpose in this world. Okay, so the way to, there's a Carol Dweck explains, first of all, she's a professor at Stanford. Well, she has a colleague. His name is Andrew Huberman. He's a very popular neurologist. And he adds another dimension. And with this, we're going to kind of like enter the second part of this discussion, is that it's very nice to say, effort is important. Expending effort constantly every day is important. But how do we avoid fatigue? How do we stay inspired and motivated? So I'm going to bring out one of my very technical, very fancy props, very expensive props. This is Chutes and Ladders. This is the first of our heavy duty props that we're going to bring tonight to explain this. And Chutes and Ladders, it looks like a simple game. There's a lot of depth to it. And if you don't know, there's a story, there's a whole story behind this. So basically, the children are getting rewarded for the good things they're doing, and as they move forward or up a ladder. And then for the bad things, maybe they leave their room messy or something. then they go down the ladder, right? Down the slide, right? And what Chassidus teaches us is that really reality is upside down. Is that really the easiest thing is to go up the slide. Like my kids, the first thing when we go to the park is they want to go up the slide, right? So what does it mean to go up the slide? So we know that you read at Sarei Chaliyah that we go down for the sake of going up. Well, it's not that these challenges and obstacles that we have in life help us, but God is elevating us, promoting us to new levels that we weren't at previously, right? He's lifting us up. He's lifting up closer to our mission and purpose in life. And it's much, when we realize that God is helping us and lifting us, then it's much easier than actually going down, right? It seems like the easiest thing is to go down or to progress gradually. But what Chutes and Ladders is the opposite version of Chutes and Ladders. That's really the reality. Really, the reality is that we're on this. We have this potential, this great potential, in terms of instilling a growth mindset, of a motivated mindset, and through, and we're going to discuss now, viewing kind of. So, what is Andrew? Is a colleague of Carol Dweck. And he is a neurologist, and all of that. And what does he say? He said Carol Dweck's system is very good, but there's something you need to add. And that's that you praise the effort, very good, but you need to enjoy the effort itself. And you can't just be like, okay, I'm exercising for a marathon, or I'm doing something for an eventual goal, because that could potentially peter out. He says, in order to release the dopamine right now, in order to enjoy what a person is doing right now, you need to enjoy the effort. So he ends off with, you have to convince yourself. You have to somehow the person, you're going to believe it if you say it enough times. But what do we say? Is that how do we view effort as fun? So for this, we have to turn back to Abraham. So if you take the Yiddish word dreidel, right? If you write it in Hebrew letters, the value is 248. This is what I'm going to bring is in part from another one of Rabbi Ginsburg's booklets that I also helped with, that I don't have here, is called Dreidel's Hidden Meanings. And that's on Amazon for anyone who's interested. Dreidel's Hidden Meanings. So there it explains that Abraham is equal to dreidel, right? And Abraham traveling through the land of Israel was like the spinning of a dreidel. And what does it mean to spin a dreidel? Is that when you spin a dreidel, initially you just see the roundness, right? So we have some props, we have chutes and ladders, and we also have some dreidels. It's always good to see. So initially, you just see the roundness. But then the discerning eye can also see the lines, the square element of it also. And Rabbi Ginsburg explains that is the ability to weave or to spin more of the miraculous into reality. So what is Abraham doing? He's bringing divinity to the world, and he's spinning around all of Israel, all the borders of Israel, right? And then the dreidel falls, right? You have to land somewhere, right? So it's like all of our lives, we spin around all these things that we could do, all these potentials, all these things that as a kid we're excited by so much, and then eventually we have to choose a profession, we have to choose a place to live, and then slowly the dreidel starts slowing down, and then it lands somewhere, right? So the act of spinning a dreidel right? It requires effort, but it's fun, right? So, I mean, I can say personally speaking, it takes a lot of effort to prepare a class, but it's fun when you're seeing God and everything, where you're seeing the oneness of God, and that's for how do you make effort fun? Is that you view effort as a game. You view it that you're playing a game together with God. What's in today's Torah reading, for the beginning of this Torah portion, is they laughed. They both laughed. Abraham and Sarah, right? Yitzchak. It's laughter, right? So to appreciate laughter and to appreciate having fun, it actually relates to today's Torah reading. So there was I was in Morristown, New Jersey, as a new student about 22 years ago, and I was at the library nearby, and this lady comes up to me and asked me a question, and at the time I didn't know the answer. I'm sure some of you know the answer, but at the time I didn't know the answer. She asked, why is it that in Ashrei you have every letter but a nun? You have a verse for every letter but a nun, right? This is from Talmud Bachus 4b. Right, what's the answer? Is that it relates to falling, right?
Knew it, Miriam.
Yeah. But what's the next verse? Samech Hashem l'chol noflim, right? Hashem supports all the fallen. And what we're adding is another thing, is that there's wonder, there's nifal to falling, right? So when a dreidel falls, it's very exciting, right? When all this potential actually lands somewhere, and we do something and we bring something down, it's a wondrous thing, because it's touching reality, it's entering reality, and it's who's called the Bar Nafla? Anyone? David is called the Bar Nafla, David HaMelech, King David, the one who's constantly prone to fall. And he knows that, and that's why he's always praying and always calling out to God, right? But that this awareness that we're always supported and always have this ability to spin more and more of the miraculous into reality. That's a way to make it fun, to make effort fun, and more of the oneness of God in all of creation. Okay. So today was actually the 42nd day of the year. 42nd. What's 42nd? What's 42? 42 is the journeys, right? And 40. So first of all, Rabbi Ginsburg says that the most important meditation for this year is to focus on bringing the awareness of the oneness of God throughout all of creation. So that's why this was, I wanted to have that as a very central theme to this class. But also 783, what's 783? Maseh B'nai Israel, the value of Maseh B'nai Israel. The journeys of the children of Israel. And that's by Hashgacha Pratis, by divine providence. That was today, the 42nd day of the year. So from after leaving Egypt, before we entered the promised land, the land of Israel, Jewish people had 42 journeys. So what does it mean to have a journey?
Wait, you're saying 783 because that's the year that we're in.
That's the year that we're in, right? 5783. So 783 equals Maseh B'nai Israel, which is the journeys of the children of Israel. And it corresponds to today, which is today was the 42nd day of the year. So if ever there's a day to speak about the journeys, this is a very good day to speak about that. So there's two things going on. There's journeys, and then traveling back to Motza-Ehem, to our starting point, to our origin. And the lesson here is that every journey forward is a travel also back to revealing the essence of our soul, the origin of our soul. And all with this idea of spinning more of the oneness of God into reality, right? So every time we spin the dreidel, it's like we can view it like a journey, like our journey. Taking every day, we have different chapters. Like for me, like giving classes once a month, right? So it's like this is like a spin, right? And every spin is with this idea of spinning more of the oneness of God into reality. This is something that's open for all of us. This is something that relates to all of us in this year. So we have the journeys forward, right? And we have the journey back to our origin, to our starting point, to the source of our soul. And all of the journeys that we take relates to the source of our soul. So it says that when Mashiach comes, right now we learn the tractate Baba Kama. In the future, we'll learn the tractate of Reb David of Lelov. Tzaddik, Reb David of Lelov, meaning that all of the Jewish people are called tzaddikim. So in the future, what does that mean that the tractate will be on our name? That's our autobiography, right? And each chapter is like a journey, right? And each time we were spinning the dreidel with the intent to overcome challenges and obstacles and spin more of godliness into reality. That's like writing a chapter. Yes.
Wait, but what's the 42?
42 is the number of journeys that the Israel journeyed after leaving Egypt before arriving in Israel. And today was the 42nd day of the year.
And so there were 42 journeys during that time?
Right. Right. So that relates to the journey of our souls throughout our entire life, from the time we're born throughout our entire life. So it relates to the journeys of each of our souls throughout our entire life. Okay, so we achieve certain levels. Let's say we complete a journey, right? So in a game, after you complete a journey, there's some type of graphics celebration, So how do we celebrate completing a journey? So I'll just give the personal example is that for me, this is having a class. Most of the effort was leading up to this, right? The weeks leading up to it and preparing for it. But the actual class is like thanking Hashem for helping me to understand these things in a better way and to give it over. So this Shabbos, I was at Chabad, and there was a Suda Soda that person sponsored Kiddush. This is the 23rd year that he sponsored Kiddush for his wife. The 23 years ago, she had certain issues. And so for 23 years, he's been sponsoring wherever he's been sponsoring Kiddush. And he said that at the time in the hospital, when he was with his wife, there was another person that was planning their Suda Suda, their Thanksgiving meal, to thank Hashem for healing them. But unfortunately, he didn't make it, this other person. And he said, you know what, this is something that I need to take on as my own. And so, on the one hand, right, to do effort and to get ice cream at the end, it's not so great, right? Because then maybe what Dr. Huberman says is that if a person was already going to do something, and then you reward them, you give them ice cream, so then you take away the ice cream, and then maybe they'll stop doing that thing, because you're raising the expectation of dopamine. But if the end result is in the DNA of what a Jew is, what's a Jew is? A Yehudi, to give Hodah, to give thanks to Hashem. That's our nature. So to celebrate that, it only inspires more growth, right? It only inspires us. We have Simchas Torah, and then you start the Torah reading again, right? So it's every closing of one chapter is the start of a new chapter, right? So every journey forward is the start of the next page of the next chapter. So that really was inspiring to me, and the ability to really be motivated by not only enjoying revealing more reality, like spinning dreidel, but also having these opportunities to thank Hashem for helping. Like most of like, for instance, in my in preparing for this is stories of just interactions, of just seemingly random things that happen and connecting the dots, right? So that's a way to just like, it's exciting, right? So hopefully the topic next month is actually using, how do you use game dynamics to help young kids, teenagers, and others see that all of reality is just an expression of the oneness of God, right? So there's ways to do it, and so we'll save a lot of that for next month. But okay, so now we're going to really try to start the workshop element and try to really plan out some specific things, and first to write down those things that you had in mind, those good things that you would like to do this year. So I have notepads and pens. Probably just take one and pass it down, or my wife can pass it along.
Maybe we should divide it. I don't know if you want to
I don't know,
pass down that way.
or maybe short a few. So
Wanna pass down? Yeah, okay. Anyone else did it?
Just while we're there, if I may ask a question.
sure.
So based on Dr. Dweck's philosophy about motivation, that one has to find the, I think you all understand, like being motivated, like we find fun in it, then we continue and we want to do that action, for whatever project we're doing more. But I guess the secret is trying to find the fun in what
So he was a graduate student in and one day, as usual, he's rushing late for his math class, just opening up the potentials and the possibilities, right? If he had come on time to class, he would have been like, oh, these things are beyond me, whatever, they're not solved. But he viewed it as something that he had to do, right? And that's kind of like what happened with me when I read the transcript about mindsets from Everything to Berg. I didn't really want to do it necessarily, but I wanted other people to benefit from it. So, and there's like no choice. You have to feel like the world is just not going to be the same unless people like are able to see this, right? So those things that touch you, that feel like those are your personal assignments, that they're vested with you, that no one else can do it like you can do it. And that was the topic also last month. We have a recording of that if you want to watch the recording. But that's finding those particular things. And it could be that a lot of what we do throughout the day, we don't necessarily think that we're the only ones that can do it. But at least to start off, and that's part of the workshop, is to start off with finding something that that really excites us, and we really feel like we could offer a really unique contribution to the world if we invest ourselves with it. Okay. All right. So we're going to start the workshop portion. So the idea is really to take from this world of potential of all the things that we could possibly do, and to bring it down into something practical. And now we're adding, with a growth mindset, things that may challenge us, right? May require effort, right? Probably will require effort, right? But those things that we really would like to do, and maybe we've been pushing off, and we really want to accomplish this year. So this is, I'm actually taking this directly from Dweck's book. So the first question: what are the opportunities for learning and growth today for myself, for people around me? So the idea is, this year, right? What would you like to accomplish? Just make a list of all the things, all the good things you'd like to accomplish this year. So this, when you put it down on paper, it's like really makes it something concrete. So that's the first thing. And while you're writing that, so there's three approaches to goal setting. So you have the approach of the Karliner Rebbe, the Sfas Emes, and Rebbe Nachman.
Mhm.
Okay, what's the Karliner Rebbe's approach? To goal setting, to planning out the future, your future activities. So the Karliner Rebbe says, put away your pens, put away the notepads, don't plan anything. Whatever God wants to happen, that's what's going to happen. Okay. So that's his approach. Okay. So it's good to have in mind. The Sfas Emes said that it's good to plan for 2 years in advance. Right? So you plan for a whole 2 years in advance. And Rabbi Nachman says, this is the one I personally connect with. He says, plan for 2 weeks at a time, because the landscape changes. Like I was in Vermont a few weeks ago, right? Beautiful leaves, it was gorgeous. And then a friend sent an update. All the leaves are dead. It's just barren trees now, right? So sometimes you have to look up again, and like things change, right? So every 2 weeks, it's.
Also every 2 weeks, your life like really changes.
Yeah, also every 2 weeks. So I'm also traveling. Yeah, and that's the good thing to have in mind, is that at least for the next 2 weeks, and then but to write down plans and ambitions and things that you would like to do in the coming year. And again, the whole one of the take-home lessons is that through believing ourselves, believing in the power of our prayer, and good to think about the dreidel, we're spreading more of this future into the present reality, more of this wondrous unity of God, right? Which in our lives means that our spark of godliness within, more into the present, right? Okay. So that's the first. I'll just repeat the first question, just in case anyone missed it. What are the opportunities for learning and growth today for myself and the people around me? And then I extended that throughout the whole year. Those things, those opportunities, and those ambitions and dreams that I have for the coming year. But then an idea that it's going to require perhaps a growth mindset to accomplish them. Okay. So it's like spinning the dreidel when it's going nice and fast, but then the dreidel starts slowing down, and then it has to land somewhere, right? So that's like the second question. When, where, and how will I embark on my plan, right? So it starts to come down, and the dreidel is landing somewhere. So what does that mean in terms of our planning? Is put some of the next steps that I would take. Choose one of those things. And what are some of the next steps that I would take in order to get that done, right? Let's say over the next 2 weeks to start with. When, where, and how will I embark on this, on one of these plans? We'll give it another minute. Okay, so what we kind of like how we're framing this is we're writing our penning our lives, our autobiography, right? Day by day, chapter by chapter, journey by journey. And we want to make it obviously exciting, and there's something that people are going to be reading for generations, right? Some life of consequence over here, and we have all these dreams and ambitions, and we want to get them going. So let's try to give some practical advice, and the other thing that I would also like to add is that 248, right, it also equals the number of positive commandments, right? And so we have a positive commandment, the 11th positive commandment, the order of the Maimonides is to learn and teach Torah. And well, it's this, we can extrapolate and say that it's good to have in mind always to give over some Torah. And as I said last time, and my wife liked it, that Torah is also self-care, right? We learn a little Torah every day for the sake of giving it over to someone else. That can also be something that is, we can also, a nice thing, an important thing to incorporate throughout our day, and also relates to 248 and to Abraham spinning around and giving Torah, just sharing Torah with others. So if anyone would like to share, that would be, it's always the best, kind of the best part of each of these classes is the interactive element. So who's going to be bravest? Yes.
Specifically, I'm sorry, again, would you please
So
reiterate what you want us to share?
So sharing just some ambition that you have for this year, something you would like to accomplish this year, and some of the steps that you've kind of delineated for yourself of the next steps to make it a reality. Or just the ambitions you have. If maybe you don't know all the steps yet, there's some ambitions.
I mean, I think some of the stuff is private.
Yeah.
I was saying.
Could be any
I'll share.
Sure.
Okay. So one of my aims this year is to facilitating an environment that brings joy to women in our community. So my next thing is trying to have Rosh Chodesh events for women. And I've already started to figure out who I can get like a woman to set up a to start to do a gathering for us to pay like concerts.
Nice.
So that's something that I've started to.
Do you have the steps already? I already said.
Well, I've already reached out
okay,
to
got it.
people, yeah, to see if they,
That's
figure
awesome.
out what women in our community plays, instruments and can sing and what have you.
Can't wait.
So I'll give another option, and that's what we had last month, the topic of the workshop last month, which was to find the place for our passions and interests and ambitions, those things that motivate us, which is very similar also to this topic, to connect it with something in Torah, something that we can learn in Torah, and every day to spend 5-10 minutes to learning that topic. And also, with the idea that maybe to learn it enough to give it over to someone to inspire someone else. So that would be another option. If the first one is a little too personal, if anyone has some type of an interest or hobby, passion that they have, and they're looking for some idea of something in Torah that they could learn, to connect the two, that would be another option for the workshop.
You say that you should try and connect your goal, and set a specific goal, to some Torah learning as well. So that you're combining Torah into your personal goal.
Yeah, that's a way to be motivated, also to connect, right? The whole thing is to see the oneness in all of creation, and that's through what's the blueprint of creation is the Torah, right? Right. So to connect the two is also a very helpful thing. We talked about how do you be motivated for something you need to do? Well, that's another way to be motivated is even if the work itself is work you have to do, to connect it with some learning. Like I'll give you an example. The first day of my job with right, and I had to climb up and down ladders to count inventory. And I only just realized when I was preparing this class of being motivated. And at that time, like I was just happy for the job, happy for the ability to work anywhere. And that in retrospect, that was something that was funny. It was, it was that ability to just like, oh wow, that was a lesson that Hashem was trying to teach me, and it took me 13 years to get it, So it's helpful, even if there's work that we have to do, but to connect the dots. So if anyone has some interest, talents, hobbies, okay, so what I would like to share to mention that. That was, yes.
So I am trying to bring myself back to some more creative roots that made me happy, younger. When I was younger, that I was more inspired and motivated to do, which is, I was able to, bring happiness to others, which gave me energy. The whole idea of performance and doing, either theater or comedy was something that really motivated me. And we, my husband and I, when we moved here, we wanted to bring Yiddishkeit to the foreground, and that was more, we had to bring learning more so than some certain goals. But that was also a very important goal, was increasing our Yiddishkeit and raising our children here. So now it's something where I'd like to get back into doing that, just in being, raising children and doing things that you just have to do. It's not, I'm doing a job where I'm not as passionate about, but it's okay. It's like it's good. I've learned a lot of skills from it, but I would like to very much get back to working in more creativity, where bringing more like wonder and ideas that make me laugh, and sharing that. And it so happens that now that we're brand new Rosh Hashanah, it's a whole new year, trying to open up the whole Sefer Bereshis. It's the whole book of creation. Like, what can be better creativity wise than Bereshis? So we're trying. I try to get my children to learn with us, where right now it's kind of like little oil and vinegar, where they're very tired. They're tired in the week. They've done this. They learned. They've submitted their Devar Torah. Here, sign line. We did this part already. Like, we want to just chill out and stuff, and that's fine. But I'm looking to increase their wonder about it, and while I'm trying to get more creative myself, I'm also trying to involve our children. Right now, it's just our two girls right now. Our son is actually in Israel. He's learning Leonhara, wonderfully. He's thriving there, but they, I want them to be excited about it. Mm-hmm. So that's the goal.
Yeah, very nice. So there's an organization called Atara. It's a Jewish woman in the arts. It's about a lot of things you're saying about expressing your creativity. It's called a Tara. So
Uh-huh.
when they were first deciding on the name, so it comes from Keter, which is the experience of wonder, all of that we've been discussing. And I think they got it from some teaching of Rabbi Ginsburg. How do I know this? Because the founders came to a class, and before the class, they were asking Rabbi Ginsburg if this is a good name for the organization. And so he said, it sounds okay. You know, he's not going to name them, but it sounds okay. You know? So that's exactly what you're saying. You know, it's in order to have a sense of wonder, in order to be motivated, in order to be motivated, you have to have a sense of wonder, right? And you have to. How do you bring that out? It's a very good way, a very important way is through creative expression, and to view that we have some creative contribution to bring to the world, and that creative contribution again is something that the world won't be the same without this poem, this music, this piece of art. So, and to connect it with Torah. So that's a lot of what Rabbi Ginsburg relates in some way to creativity. There's a class on joy and creativity in Toronto. It was given about 3 years ago, which I could send you if you give me your email. I could send you the link. And I would say,
Art education for your children.
right.
Education.
Right, so that's also a very nice book on education. But that's kind of what we're talking about. It's next month it'll be more on practical game activities and kind of like what are some exercises that you can do to really open up eyes, right? Open up that sense of wonder.
Right.
So, and that's also, it's all creative, you know, it's there's no like one set way to create like a game, right? Using game mechanics to open up a sense of wonder. Rabbi Ginsburg gave me some instruction. That was my first question to him in 1998, was on how to create a game. 25 years later, you know, sometimes you have to be patient until these things come about. So.
I just want to connect something that I also learned that it's like that Abraham Avinu, so this is from Rabbi Leff, who I listened to often, Rabbi Zev Leff, that a person who is trying to be like mashpia upon people and influence people, that they have an easier time doing so outside of their family, because those that are familiar with them, it's harder. He said, "Why you see all the time, like these tzaddikim, that their family are not really impressed by his change, his growth, or whatever, because the closer that you are, like the familiarity somehow is too close, that it's not impressive, that it has to be out like from an outside source." And so sometimes, even though, sometimes my husband and I were trying to, entertain our children with, who knows what, like ideas and juggling. What else you got there? Some pins and stuff. It's, it's like, okay, next, what else you got? So it's oh gosh. I feel like I lost my train of thought of how I connected what you just said, the last part. Sorry, what? Yeah. Well, that because even Lot, like he couldn't even as far as Lot to really get on board the way he was.
Interesting.
Right. But I'm sorry, I forget how that I was trying to relate it to what you were just saying. Something lost that little nugget there.
Sometimes you can't inspire your kids even though you try.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah.
It'll come to me.
No, I mean, that's something that I've been thinking about. It's like, I can't expect my kids to care that just because I'm giving classes or whatever. It's like, you have to just live it by example, and then hopefully,
Right.
hopefully they see that. Yeah. Yes. Sure. Thank you. Okay, so is any other people would like to share? Either again, plans, some plan for this year, or something, some passion of theirs that they would like to have some idea of how to connect it in Torah, especially maybe some teaching of Rabbi Ginsburg.
I heard a nice start tour on this.
Sure.
On the first show, the special.
Sure.
So it's interesting, like, very famous question. So list the order that Abraham Avinu is asked to leave, the place he's asked to leave, where he's from. So obviously, it's a famous question, why the order? It seems illogical. So it should be, physically leaving, it should be like from, obviously, logically speaking, everybody knows you leave your home, then you leave the city that you're from, and then if you leave the state or the country, walk a long distance, so to travel to another country. And so one of the Mepharshim I saw, it was interesting that it's not talking about like a physical journey, because Avraham Avinu was 75 years old, he already was married. And so he wasn't really living in his father's house, and you could say he really wasn't even the direction he was going, and in terms of who he was, and where he was at, so to say, he was already not in the place that he was from. But the point is that, obviously it's hard to leave, the hardest thing is the place that you're in. So meaning where you grew up, the home is the biggest thing, where who you are. Obviously the surrounding city is your accent comes from the surrounding city living, even the country that you're living in. Certain mannerisms, things like that. So that, but the hardest thing is obviously, so starting with the easier thing and then going to the pasuk is going to the harder thing, that's to leave. So, and as a Mepharshim, as the Parish says, whatever, is that it wasn't really a physical journey that he was asked to take. He was asked to take like a psychological journey, so it's kind of a lesson for us that, because physically maybe he was already not living at home, obviously he was already kind of on his way out in terms of not wanting to be where he was, but he was asked like go and actually actualize what you're thinking, like go and it doesn't have to be like today, like maybe I don't know how long it took, already starting out on your way, actually action, and so like I think it was a good lesson to say, like anytime you want to do something, it's not okay. The first step is obviously
Point is that what's the take-home point is that we need to take that initiative, right? We start off with, it's called Partzuf Arich. That's start us with this world of potentials, and the dreidel has to land somewhere. We have to choose something. We have to be decisive about it, and the more decisive we are, the more that we bring down godliness into the world. And how do we do that? Continue having that effort. On the one hand, we can focus on the horizon after horizon, that the world is recreated at every moment, but also to have fun, right? To enjoy, and that's today's Torah reading is to laugh and to enjoy the effort itself, to take pleasure and enjoy in the effort itself and spinning the dreidel. So unless there's any other questions, there's the books are available for sale. And if anyone would like to get a recording, you can write your number, and we'll take everyone. Okay, you can write down your name and number. Send you the recording. And yes.
I just want to mention something about potential. If you take a look, there's a tefillah that we say 3 times a day. It's called Ashrei. And it's in alphabetical order, and it tells us the attributes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what he does, and all the beautiful things we are supposed to emulate HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you look in the middle of this tefillah, at the Lamed, It says, "Lahodia ben Adam kavurosov." If you translate it, it means you should look at Hashem, you should see what Hashem's greatness is. But if you also translate it in another way, you say, "Lahodia ben Adam kavurosov." You should take a look at the human aspect of his potential. What is the potential of you as a human? I think that ties in with what you're talking about. We should look at our own potential and develop that.
It's beautiful. We talked about the Nun and the Samach. We didn't talk about the Lamed.
Now you get us something.
Now we have that's beautiful. Yeah. So, so for the recording and to be updated to name and number, the book's available for sale. These booklets are produced weekly. The email is on the back to sign up to receive a free copy. This is called the Wonders booklet, appropriately enough. This is
That's great.
about awakening a sense of wonder.
Can we just take out our
Yes.
notes so we can give you
Sure,
back the book?
sure. And I'm happy if anyone wants to come afterwards to the questions one-on-one. But thank you all for coming.
Thank
Really,
you.
really appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. You're allowed to applause. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right, yeah, thank you.
Can you stop this?
Oh.
And
Okay.